Unquiet Grave stars Jacob A. Ware as Jamie, a man who, a year after the death of his wife, enlists her sister Ava, played by Christine Nyland, to help him bring her back. This is directed by Terrence Cray in his feature debut, and he also co-wrote the screenplay with Nyland, and it's also worth noting that Nyland and Ware are the only two actors in the entire film. Now, there's definitely a bare bones element to this, and when I realized that early on, I did start to get a little worried, as a number of Shudder's original films, mainly this year, have that similar feel, and while I'm always glad that they take a chance on newer filmmakers and get their stuff out there, lately it hasn't been going so well, especially when the films are stylistically similar to this. But this is an instance where it did go well. I actually quite like this movie, to be honest. It's far from perfect, but it did play around with a few interesting elements that I found to be genuinely intriguing, and I was pretty engrossed with it from start to finish. The film definitely channels some of the same energy as Pet Sematary, as it involves a grieving individual doing something he shouldn't in order to bring back a dead loved one. Though I'd say that beyond that same general idea, the two venture off into totally different paths. But like Pet Sematary, this does explore grief, and it takes things a step further in how extreme one would react if they were in a similar situation as our main characters here, though I won't spoil exactly where things go. Now, because of those similarities, some may feel this is a bit derivative and may be able to call a bit where this is going, which I totally get, as at first that's how I felt. But I found this to be a film that's less about the specific actions these characters take, and it's more about how they process the aftermath of it. I'd say this is actually first and foremost a character study, and a pretty solid one at that too, using horror elements to effectively convey someone going through the stages of grief. And because of how effective the film was at conveying this, I wouldn't even really call it a slow burn per se. While it's a lot less focused on spectacles and action, that doesn't mean that nothing happens. If anything, it's a pretty emotionally charged experience, and one that's anchored by two solid performances. Jacob A. Ware is good as Jamie as he tries to grapple with his wife's death, though it's Christine Nyland who absolutely knocked it out of the park as Ava as far as I'm concerned, especially once we got to the second act, as she has some truly distressing moments of her own. I especially look forward to seeing her lead another film soon. Now, as for criticisms, the big one for me is that the film still does feel like it's confined in a way. While Cray's direction is solid and he gets the atmosphere down well, this absolutely screams first feature film to me. While I was fine with it being more of an emotionally charged film rather than an action-based film, there were signs that it could have explored more, especially after one particularly disturbing moment in the second act, and I would have liked had the film explored some of those disturbing elements just a bit more. But between the fact that there are only two actors in the entire movie, the fact that we're only in a handful of different locations, and that the runtime is only an hour and 15 minutes, it clearly felt like they only had so much of a budget. While the short time does allow the film to move pretty quickly for what it is, I think it could have benefited from a slightly longer runtime, especially considering that it wraps things up pretty quickly. And not that I didn't like what happened in those last few minutes, but it just arrived so quick that it felt like there could have been a scene or two beforehand to ease us into it, and it would have hit so much better. But despite my issues, this actually turned out to be a pleasant surprise. It may have a bare-bones style which does hurt it at times, but I appreciate its exploration of grief, its moody atmosphere and unsettling nature, as well as the two solid lead performances, especially from Nyland. I hope we get to see more from her and Cray in the near future, but in the meantime, this one's on Shudder, and if you haven't yet, go give it a watch. An Unquiet Grave gets a 7.5 out of 10. So let me know, did you see An Unquiet Grave, or are you planning to see it, and what were your thoughts? Did you like the premise? Do you have a favorite Shudder original film? Let me know in the comments below so we can discuss. Also, if you enjoyed this video, please like it and share it, and for more movie reviews and film discussion, please make sure to hit that subscribe button to stay updated. Thanks for watching everyone, and keep having fun with film.